Hey folks, Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case we're going to be taking a look at the finest combat pistol ever made, the HK P7. Now I'm using my words carefully here because have I said the best combat pistol ever made? That's probably still very much the Glock pistol. Now the finest, yes, that's what most experts agree, and I agree with them as well, and I'm going to explain why that is through this video. Now the HK P7 emerged as a result of the 1972 Munich Olympic massacre, when the German police realized it was quite poorly equipped as to deal with the kind of terrorism they were seeing. Their old Walther PPs and 32 ACP were just not up to the task, so they put out a contract looking specifically for a gun that was a 9mm, that was ambidextrous, this was important, ready to use right out of the holster, and could take at least 10,000 rounds, and a few other requirements, but that was basically it. Now, three pistols emerged out of this contract. The three ended up being used in different forces across Germany. That was the Walther P5, the Sig Sauer P225, designated a P6, and of course the HK P7, originally called the PSP for Police Self-Loading Pistol. It was pretty much the same gun as this one. The only difference is that this is the P7 M8, which was the Americanized version, so as to fulfill the requirements from police departments in the United States and appeal to that market. The two differences were that the magazine release, instead of being in the traditional European heel position, still very much ambidextrous, but around here where now they have a lanyard, and it was moved to a more traditional location, resolved beautifully by HK because this is very comfortable and easy to access on both sides, so it's fully ambidextrous. Even if you have short stubby fingers, people realize that they could use even their index finger, pulling it back a little bit and just accessing it there. The second difference was the heat shield, which is this plastic that you have here. The reason for the heat shield is, a little bit of ongoing discussion and mentioned a lot, in my opinion, greatly exaggerated the heating issue of this gun, which means that because of the system that it has, which is a delayed blowback, where gas is bleeded from a small hole right in front of the chamber in the barrel. It's going to be bleeding gas into a cylinder here where it interacts with a piston that's attached to the front of the slide. That's going to be keeping the gun from cycling and the slide from moving backwards until pressure drops. Only then, when that pressure drops, does the slide move backwards and the gun cycles. Now, because of the gun going in here in a hole, in a cylinder specifically within the frame itself, and that's hot gas right off the round that you just fired, it heats up after a few rounds. How much does it heat up? In my experience, because I do use this gun in the range, I've never had a problem with it. I reload my magazines, keep on shooting, never noticed anything. Now, if you're going to be shooting several hundreds of rounds in a very short period of time, maybe it's an issue. Yeah, it could be, especially with the shooting classes that we see these days. Keep in mind, but that back in the day when this gun was first issued, the kind of training was quite different. It was not as intense, especially not as ammo intense of dumping round after round. It was more, traditional and less intense maybe. Even with that, with a heat shield, shouldn't be a problem. At least for me, I think it's greatly exaggerated, mostly by people that haven't shot the gun a whole lot. Now, it's a gun that is also very easy to disassemble. Just press this button, and there you go. Fully field strip, ready for cleaning. You see the piston right here, and I don't know if you get to appreciate there's a small hole there. And that's the hole where the piston goes in, and that's where the gas goes. You also see that you have fixed barrel. It's a polygonal rifling barrel, just like the Glocks, well, the earlier Glocks, not the new Marksman barrels, but it's a barrel that's very accurate, very easy to keep clean. I like polygonal rifling more than traditional rifling in the barrels. You also see that you have a fluted chamber. Those lines along the chamber, that's something that you would find in certain rifles. The HK G3 and the Set-Me rifle had these so as to aid in the ejection of the empty case. This is so effective that even if you remove the extractor from the slide, which you have it here, it's a traditional extractor. If you remove it, the gun is still going to be ejecting and cycling on gases alone because of the gas that goes through those holes in aiding that ejection. That alone helps make the gun cycle. Even with a broken or removed extractor completely, the gun still works. Just says a lot about how reliable this thing is. The fixed barrel helps a lot also for accuracy. There's no movement there of the barrel. And also notice this, you have your magazine doesn't go in along the lines of the grip angle, it just goes straight up, making it easier for reload. And once that happens, you see how it's so high, it's almost aligned already with the barrel itself. There's a minimal ramp needed. Most pistols require a little bit more of a larger feeding ramp. This is already almost in place, and you know, this aids in helping different bullet types, hollow points. You could put a freaking hamster in there, just gonna be sliding into place without a problem. All of this just makes the gun very, very reliable, which is one of the key issues in this pistol, one of the key aspects about it. So as to assemble it, just make sure you are aligning that piston with a hole that you have there. And that's basically it. It's also one of the fastest, easiest guns to reassemble. Now, the traditional thing about the P7 is the cocking lever, right? This is something very iconic. It's a very iconic gun in general. You've probably seen it in movies, especially, and there's different models of this. There's a P7, there's a model in 32 ACP and 22 long rifle. There's a P7 and 10 in 40 Smith & Wesson. There's a very rare P7 and 45 ACP, only 5 or 6 prototypes ever made, and maybe the most iconic P7 of them all, the one used in the movie Die Hard by the villain Hans Gruber, who had nickel-plated P7 M13. It's the exact same thing as this gun, only double stacked. It's very expensive, a little bit less common. Unfortunately, I don't have a P7 M13 nickel plated. I do have a blued P7 M13, and I have it in quite nice condition actually. And this is a gun that is same thing, just 13 rounds. They adapted the top of the magazine because they kept everything the same, so as to have the gun work in a similar manner. It's a beautiful gun. I never had, some people complain that this is too fat. Never had a problem with that. It's just, I'm used to the Glock already, so no big deal there. Now notice how, you know, it was so ahead of its time. If you think about it, doesn't it remind you, I mean, that slide to grip ratio speaks of the like Glock 19X, you know, big fat grip, small slide. The distance between sights is actually greater than in the Glock 19, about the same, but with a smaller slide. Again, a lot of engineering went into this gun. Unfortunately, this one, well, fortunately maybe, it's in very nice condition. I saw one in Gunbroker, going for $3,000, I think 3,200 bucks, and it wasn't as nice as this one, not in as nice condition, and it didn't have the original box, manual, original target, spare magazine, and cleaning tool, and the matching number to all go along with it in the box. So this is more of a safe queen for me, but fortunately I do have the P7 M8 so as to actually, you know, actually use it in the range. So going back to the design, here we have that cocking lever. Let me be completely honest, I did not like this design at all when I first read about it, when I first saw it. Yes, it looks cool and different, which is why they use it so much in the movies. But it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, when you actually take it to the range, that's when I got it. That's when I understood why this gun is as appreciated as it is. because it just shoots so well. That's the thing about the HK-P7. It just shoots fantastically well. It's a very accurate gun. Now, the thing about guns is that any modern gun is going to be more accurate, intrinsically so, than anyone pulling the trigger. Having said that, some guns, people shoot better with some guns than with others. And in my experience, and probably most people that ever taught anyone to shoot, they know that when you have a group of people and you give them 5-6 guns, usually most people shoot their best with a Glock pistol. That's simply the way it is because of a number of factors that go into the gun. It's just a gun that people just shoot well with. Now, if I have that same group of people and I include the P7, most of them are going to be shooting their best with a P7. Why that is? Because of the fixed barrel, the polygonal rifling, the low, super low bore axis. You're kind of like there. Your hands are going up so high that distance between the bore, the axis of the bore of the barrel and your grip, where it's going to be pivoting, it's minimal, so it's easier to control the gun. The delayed blowback helps in that as well. And finally, you have that beautiful single action trigger. The trigger is fantastic in this thing. One of those things you actually have to experience to understand how good it is. But even though this is a striker fired gun like a Glock, but when it is rested, it's completely safe. Everything is dead here. There's no tension, there's no cocked hammer, there's nothing. Now when you press that lever, the cocking lever, this is just about 15 pounds, but once it's depressed, it's 2 pounds to keep it in place. So there's no fatigue, you're not getting tired. But once you do that, this is going to be shooting in single action, and it's one of the nicest single action triggers you will find in any combat handgun. This is why this gun is so accurate and so highly regarded as well. These things are just fantastic shooters. Now this is all very expensive and maybe it's not all that complex. It's just a few levers, no big deal. But it's all expensive to make, and it was expensive back in the day, still very much is so. That's why it fell out of favor, and eventually, simpler solutions were found. If you look at a lot of the design in this gun went to the Glock pistol. Now, Gaston Glock, being the smart guy that he is, instead of doing this, look how instead of having this, he had a more simple lever that was still, instinctively used when firing the gun, because you press it here, but instead of putting your lever here, it's just here in your trigger. Very successful, a very good idea, simple solution, much more affordable and cheaper than in the P7. Sure, you don't have that super nice single action trigger, but it's a compromise that obviously turned out quite well for him. So all of these reasons are why this gun is as appreciated. The sights also, the first gun to use 3-dot sights. And they're very minimalistic. You have just your 3 dots. You don't have anything else obstructing your vision. This is, it is super nice, super accurate to shoot. I just love it. If you get the chance, maybe buy one, maybe at least try shooting one. If you know someone, don't give it a shot. Don't think that it's just all hype. It's definitely not. It's a fantastic, fantastic gun. The slide locks on your last round fired, and you can actually use that little tab there to press it and lock it in the rearward position. And when you're shooting, right, you eject it with that great HK ejector. You eject the magazine, you slam another magazine in place, and the only thing you have to do is just press that strap again. That works like a slide retention. You press it and it flies forward, ready to shoot. This is a gun that does well in competition. Of course, being as rare as it is, magazines costing a fortune, it's not used anymore. But back when it was, some people I know have actually won national matches with this gun. It's a very accurate gun, very fast to shoot and reload as well. So guys, that's basically why this is the finest combat pistol ever made. Yeah, it's an elegant weapon for a more civilized era, as someone in a movie once said as well. It's gonna be all for now, folks. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell button thingy there, and do subscribe because it does help a great deal. I always appreciate that. See you on our next video. Have a great day.